Times online, rugbypass.com. Chris, that was much more like it, wasn't it? The first fight of 45 minutes. You heard the highlights there. 5 converted tries, as good as any half of rugby that we have seen from the All Blacks. I would say, mate, in the last 5 years.
Yes, it was slightly helped by the fact that the Argentinians forgot to take a scrum onto the pitch. And when the scrum did form, it was unrecognisable. I mean, who takes out a second row and sticks the back row forward in there against a fired-up all-black scrum that has got a point to prove? It was like, OK, we give up this bit. It's like a football team going on the pitch without a goalkeeper. You know, these are fundamental parts of your game. And I would not be surprised if, on arrival back in Buenos Aires, Passport Control actually refuses entry for a lot of those forwards as they claim to be Argentinians, and they patently aren't.
Look, we were always going to see a couple of things in this run. We were always going to see a bounce back from the All Blacks and maybe a buttoning off or however you do that in a rugby test match from Argentina, given the fact that they had achieved what they wanted to achieve, which was to win last week. Okay, the second half, I mean, you know, when you're down 35-3 at halftime, of course, you know, the game is effectively over. But that first half of rugby was how we played them at the semi-final last year. So at least we're back to that level, which is really pleasing, because it's been a muddled start for Scott Robertson.
Absolutely. And, you know, we talked about why couldn't they solve the problems on the pitch during the game last week. They obviously spent the week sorting those out, got the blackboards out, the guys understood, they exploited, as All Blacks teams should do all the time, the blind side when you have spotted weaknesses. Perenero was so much better at that this week. He minimised the kicking, as we said last week. Yeah, he should have given more opportunities for longer kickers to clear. This is what he did this week. And in fact, the tactical kicking was so much better. You just got the ball down there. You made them play from deep on an absolutely horrendous day for running rugby, but you play the conditions. And that was a sort of aspect of that I really was impressed with. We saw you being far more clinical and better understanding of how you should play in those conditions. And when you had a team that had a problem, thanks to your new star man, Tamati Williams, you screwed them on it. And that was fantastic to see, because you want to see this edge that you're going to need going to South Africa.
That is the biggest question now, isn't it? So just before we tackle that, how good were the Boks? They made 10 changes. Or should the question be, how poor are the Wallabies? Were the Wallabies even worse than they were in Brisbane?
Well, Nick White actually gave him a bit of shape, didn't he? Because you know what you're going to get with Nick. He's annoying. He will get in the faces of the opposition. So at least you're actually, you know, putting a bit of a marker down. But, you know, they've got bits and pieces of the team. They've got a couple of big ball carrying forwards. You know, they've got a good boy in the wing who can make some real yardage. But as a cohesive unit, they're still way off where they need to be under Schmidt. And the only good news for them is they do go to Argentina. And they would hope, even with their scrum, to do okay against the Argentinian 8. But, you know, I can think Contepone is going to have them absolutely wired up for the arrival of the Wallabies, who are bottom of the table, and that's where they're going to finish. But the South Africans did what they said they're going to do, 10 changes. They tried this in 2011. I spoke in the week to Gary Gold about this when he was with De Villiers as their coach. They left a load of players behind in 2011, got beaten twice in Australia because they didn't allow enough time in the build-up to a World Cup. They started this build-up to the next World Cup much earlier. And the reason that's interesting in 2011, because the two coaches who were left behind to look after the players who didn't go to Australia, one of them was Rassie Erasmus. So he knows exactly the mistakes that were made in 2011. He's not making them again. And even with some players who are injured, obviously, they've got a few guys out. Faf de Klerk now probably won't play again this year. Mostert's still injured. Evan Roos is injured. And De Jager's gone. They got Andre Esterhuizen and Jasper Wiese coming back into the mix. Along with those players he left out for the second test. So it's going to be a massive task, isn't it, at altitude in that first test? But at least you're going there, having thrown some punches and made the Springboks sit up and take notice that, hey, you know what, it's quite a good All Black team turning up.
Chris Jones, Times online, rugbypass.com. So, is this the heavyweight championship of the rugby world? Is this 1 versus 2?
I think Ireland would have a bit of a
we beat them in the quarterfinal. They did beat South Africa, and they've beaten them twice, remember, in the last 2 times they played. But we know.
But look, you guys, I just like to remind you that Ireland actually did quite well against you guys, remember? they're a good side, Ireland. You could become a very good side, particularly if you can get guys like Timothy Williams playing like that away from home. And that's going to be really most intriguing thing about this first game at altitude in Joburg is, whether the young second row pair are given a chance, whether Scott Barrett is back, will Williams scrummage along with Lomax and Taylor? Will they actually show the box that they ain't going backwards? Because you know what's going to come at you. It's going to be those horrible forwards from the World Cup, followed up by the bomb squad. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to 7-1.
Yeah, he will. He will again. Yeah, I reckon he will. Yeah.
Because he knows that's where he has to take you on and he has to beat you. Because, now you've got Will Jordan back. You're carrying a really world-class finisher. You're getting more out of Bowden. Damien McKenzie looks like he's settling into this role. If they could only decide who his centres are, that would help. Got a bit more out of Geordie. Good to see. Again, the kicking was important. But that South African backline, they can add now Willie LaRue and Damien Delalande, Kurt Lee and Arenza to the side that attacked brilliantly from deep in terrible conditions in Perth. So there's an awful lot coming at you, and it is going to be a different sort of South African team because they now believe in this attack from deep because they have the players to do it. And so it's going to come down to how much control you guys can wrestle up front. And your line-out still has to be proved, I think, at this very highest level. And Estevet showed he can still be an annoyance, nicking ball off the opposition throw.
It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin, Untamed, only on the platform.
1:31 time. Yeah, Tony Kemp joining us just after the news, sport and weather at 2 o'clock. We'll go through the major talking points from NRL round number 24. Here's a stat for you. When you look at that points table, all the top 8 teams won, excepting for Penrith, of course, because Melbourne beat Penrith on Thursday night. But if you look at the top 8, every other one of those teams won. What does that say to you? It says something significant to me. It says this is the business end of the season, and those are the best teams because they are in the top 8.
We need to talk.
About the All Blacks.
We need to talk.
I'm just going to pop a whole lot of questions to you. Some will take a couple of seconds to answer. Others might take a little longer.
Next!
How good are the All Blacks, pal?
Well, they were good, yes. Very good against a team they should be good against.
Yes, that's it.
Next!
How good were the Springboks? See, I'd say the same answer. I'd say exactly the same answer. They were good, but they were good against a team they should be good against.
Yes, but I do think... Well, actually, I don't know. I was going to say, I think the Wallabies are better than Argentina, but I really don't know. For what it's worth, the Springboks were on the road and we were at home. So.
Next!
Is this showdown between us and them the heavyweight championship of the world?
No. You can't say that after we lost to Argentina a week ago.